Hello, good afternoon. Today is Friday, August 15th, and it's 3:05 p.m., and this is a regular meeting of the Village of Southampton Planning Commission agenda. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Then we'll do a roll call. We have today Jacob Yahanyan. We have Christian Picot by Zoom. Michael Anderson cannot make it. And Ginny Zdroulas may arrive a bit late. The next item on the agenda is a motion to approve the minutes of July 18, 2025. Anybody opposes? No? Approved.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Christian. Number 4, Public Safety Wireless Tower update. So, as you know, this process has lasted over a year. We have been several times in front of the Planning Board, the ZBA, and the ARB. So far, everything is moving forward. Last week, the ARB decided that they wanted a modification of the look of the fence on the parking lot of the Windmill Lane Fire Station. And this new drawing proposal will be presented on September 8th. And then we have one more meeting with the Planning Board until it's finally approved for issuance of a building permit. So it's moving forward and it's in good shape. The second item, well, actually it's number 5 now. Water tank project at North Maggie Street, update by Jacob. Jacob?
Thank you. Suffolk County Water Authority should be completing their mapping of our North Maggie property in an expeditious fashion by August 20th, of which they will come back and do markations of the rebar of our landmass size and location. A question was asked by Suffolk County Water Authority if we have clarity on what is the driveway easement and egress that we may or may not share with Southampton Township. So I've asked our superintendent, Steve Phillips, to look into it, and he will. The co-head of operations of Suffolk County Water Authority cleared with their council to share with us what a form easement agreement looks like, which we've reviewed. I've subsequently gone back at the behest of my colleagues here on the Planning Commission and asked for a range of the economics and possible present value, as this is a long-term land agreement. And I will share that with the commission members as soon as I retrieve that information. But Suffolk County Water Authority has been very proactive in supporting our need of having the additional 2,000 water gallon capacity for our sustainable and infrastructure needs for the village. And look forward to continue working with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any question regarding either the cell tower or the project, the water tank project?
I had a question for Jake. In the process, the SCWA has to go to the town to figure out authorization to do a pipe injection from the well to the west into the tank. In your mind, when does this happen? Is it, because there's no point in negotiating a lease, there's no point in doing all of this until they get that authorization? Or are they saying, well, we're not gonna do it until we have a deal with the village? How do we think about this? Do you have any thoughts?
I'll go back and clarify the action steps with Joe on Monday. It's a
Okay.
valid point, because the piping for the throughput of the water is critical, so I'll clarify that.
I guess it's tied with the question of the easement you just had a minute ago with the town, and the piping is, I guess, part of the same sort of issue, I would assume, right?
Yeah, I will get that clarified Monday. I'll give Joe a call again.
Awesome, okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you. If there are no further questions on the cell tower and the water tank project, the next item on the agenda, number 6, is the Southampton Village BESS legislation project. Christian?
Sure. So, the mayor has asked the planning commission to look at the legislative intent for a battery energy storage system, otherwise known as BESS. We know that the town of Riverhead in Southampton did some revision along with the Suffolk County Planning Commission in their code. Southampton town passed a revised law a few weeks ago on BESS, which in earnest was the result of the Hampton Bays residents' pushback on a 100 megawatt facility. And now in the new code of the town, the limits are in what they call Tier 2, which is the capacity allowed from 600 kilowatts to only 5 megawatts. So a project like the Hampton Bays BESS facility, which was to be located at the canal between the railroad track and the county road, for a 100 megawatt, which is an enormous facility, would no longer be contemplated in the township of Southampton, since they have now limited Tier 2 to 5 megawatts. What the mayor has asked the village to do is to have a similar study and implementation of a legislation for BESS, focusing on minimizing the hazards, environmental impact, visual impact, and really, while doing this, supporting the compliance with New York State climate goals. Unfortunately, you can't say you're just not going to allow it, and the state home rule won't allow you to do that, so you have to put legislation which guides any project and its site plan. So what we're going to work on is obviously emphasizing fire safety, special separation from residential areas, and a tiering system, possibly. Now, the only location these things could really be put in on the commercial, and I'm not talking about residential, the commercial side, would obviously be in the light industrial zone near the railroad track, which is near the north border of the village. The most obvious place to put a large BESS would be the PSCG owned site, which is on the other side of the railroad track, and unfortunately the village has no jurisdiction there. But I think the comfort to know that this new local law revision, local law 22 of 2025, limits BESS to 5 megawatts. So stories like the drama of the proposed 100 megawatt facility at Hampton Bays would not be anywhere near there. Furthermore, when I looked at how they wrote it, the Tier 2 system, which would be anywhere from 600 kilowatts to 5 megawatts, would require at least 300 foot from residential parcels or occupied community buildings. And I don't think you could do it on a PSCG site anyway, the way the town has done its revisions. So good for them. I can't say the same for Riverhead, which is far more, and I guess for good reasons, lenient on BESS. the short answer for this commission and for the public and our trustees to know is that the mayor has asked us to work on the topic and come up with a legislative recommendation that we would include in our code, just like we did, for instance, for nodes last year when it came to thinking about wireless development. We'll put together a task force. So far, I will lead it with our planner, Alex Wallach. We've invited one very knowledgeable village resident to work with us, who's accepted, who's very knowledgeable on BESS and who has spent a lot of time studying and understanding what the town was doing. So he's accepted it, it's good. And today, I would appeal if there is anyone in the community who has any knowledge and interest in working with us on this legislation for BESS to step forward. That obviously would concern possibly the Environmental and Sustainability Committee, though I don't think they have anyone on that committee who's knowledgeable on BESS as a whole. But certainly if someone wants to join, they can. So we're going to probably have a meeting on September 5. I've asked Alex to sort of think about any and all parcels where BESS would be possible in the village. It's going to be probably a pretty quick exercise so that we can think about the setbacks as an example. We could think about how we would want to either copy or even be more restrictive than the township in its approach. But the town did do a pretty good job. We will work along with the Suffolk County Economic Development and Planning Division of Planning and Environment. They're the ones who got in touch with us, flagging this to us that we should be working on it as part of a South Fork incorporated entity, as the village is. So we'll reach out with them and coordinate this. So that's the group. It'll take several months, but we're going to start this in earnest in September. That's what I wanted to share. Any questions or thoughts as to how we should approach this from any of you on the commission or anybody from the public?
Yeah, one of our divisions of our corporation in Texas happens to be in energy, and one of our companies is American Battery Tech. But I have some few basic questions that maybe Alec can answer. What is the ordinance core language? Is it that we are mandated to buy within our utility purchase sustainable energy that's either solar or wind based that requires industrial grade lithium storage? I mean, what's the core of it that leads into where it needs to be aggregated or stored at our village level vis-a-vis a possible shared service power storage and agreement with the township, which has more of a land mass and less of a pressure on us? So any thoughts on that, or you don't know, Alex?
I don't.
Yeah, why don't we look into that, because we do that IPP work.
Let me partly answer this question. It is at the state of New York level a requirement to comply with the state climate goals, and that obviously using BESS goes along with that. The question is, because you can't forbid, you can't just say, I don't want to BESS in my community of any shape or form on a commercial side. What you have to do, and which is what the town of Southampton did, is to minimize the impact of possible large projects like the 100 megawatt that was at a strategic infrastructure weak point of Long Island, to recast this code. But home rules don't allow us to avoid them altogether. And frankly, in the village, there's really nowhere other than around Marina Drive where you could put one of those, and every one of those parcels are taking it as it is. but somebody might want to invent something, so the mayor wanted us to block and tackle, if you will.
So forgive me, just to clarify, then the state ordinance is that, let's say, out of 100%, 20% of whatever we purchase and store needs to be sustainable energy based on solar and lithium technology? Is that the broad picture that requires us to do a site allocation of storage? I'm trying to understand the basic economics of it. Or there's no such, or it's just a blanket comment, like a catch-all says, municipalities need to allocate certain purchase of energy through sustainable so-called green means. Is there a rule? Does it need to be 10%, 20%, 30%? What utility we purchase requires lithium or solar, or there's no such language in BES?
You know what, that's gonna be part of the work that we're gonna
Okay.
need to satisfy ourselves with. But generically, I think there is, it's certainly very attractive from a residential perspective to have a mini BES in your basement. There are states like Vermont, New Hampshire, who subsidize them and encourage them because it helps at the consumer level to manage these peak loads. And it's economical, obviously, for anyone to do the CapEx, get some fiscal rebates and incentives to do so, and buy energy during the night when it's cheap, and store it and use it when it's really when the peaks happen between 4 and 7 p.m. Monday through Friday.
Yeah, I was just thinking, Christian, that a workaround could be is that if we work with PSE&G and say, let's say the village of Southampton agrees to purchase 10, 20% of their energy through green methods using solar and lithium through a conduit, that may be able to ameliorate the stress point of physically having a lithium storage facility. We've done that. We have a data center in Tribeca, which uses an inordinate amount of energy. And we've agreed to buy, let's say, 20% of whatever from Consolidated Edison or National Grid, whatever it is, through wind turbine, thereby not needing to have a physical storage capacity. So that perhaps may be a workaround, and not have physically industrial grade lithium storage facility in our village. I'm thinking openly because we all need to, I suppose, look deeper into this BES mandate language by the state.
Yeah, I mean, look, you raise a really good point. We'll need to spend some time on that particular aspect. As you may remember, the township has a large solar facility and an agreement with PSE&G. Some of us, and I signed up for it, had the opportunity to participate in having our electrical rate blended between purchase of renewable resources versus traditional electrical production. So I know the town has already done this and is already into it. The question is, does the village need to follow the steps of the town? Since in this particular, let's call it transaction, like a better word, we were already part of it.
Agreed.
Those are all good questions.
Agreed. Particularly with the Southampton Township site where we have an independent power producer, solar, they probably already have on site a unit that stores the capacity of lithium. And so long as, let's say, our municipality purchases that power source, we don't necessarily need to physically have an additional power storage source in our village, so long as we're purchasing it from that particular IPP power source. We're thinking out loud. I mean, anyway,
Okay.
I would imagine that would be agreeable, but let's double check that BES language and see how
No,
granular
thank you
it
for that.
gets.
That's really a good point, and I will reach out to you as we make progress to make sure we put our arms around issues like the one you're pointing it out. The way it was presented to me was more as a blocking, tackling, to use football analogy, for anyone trying to install in the village 6.5 mile square mile compound a BES, which would get the residents back up, not wanting such a facility because everybody is nervous about it. That's really where we started it, but there's probably a lot more to it, as he's pointing it out, and as we did, we made funny. So a good point, thank you.
Christian, a quick question. By default, does the town decision apply to the village, or the village is not party to the limits of the town?
From a zoning perspective, the village has its own zoning code, chapter 116. What the town does doesn't apply. But what the state does applies.
So could we just adopt the town's language?
We could. I guarantee you we're gonna do a lot of copy and pasting, but we wanna make sure that it's, while the town did something for their 65 square miles, we gotta be thoughtful in our 6.5 square mile, not to have something ridiculously long that doesn't really apply. And that's why I really wanna see with Alex and think together, where could this even be? Honestly, I'm not sure I could think of a single place where it could be. So it's a question of how much time we really should spend on this. But the mayor really wants to make sure that this thing is watertight and we don't have issues with it. I just can't really imagine, but we'll figure it out.
Agreed. Without the solar panels, the notion of having a discussion about lithium-ion storage is kind of moot, and we barely have the footprint in our village to even manage it.
Correct, and with the price of the land anyway, I can't think of any sponsor wanting to come in the village to install a 5 megawatt facility. I can't imagine it. I've discussed this with the mayor, he doesn't care. We need to figure this out and get to the bottom of it, so
Okay.
that's what we'll do.
Great. Thank you, Christian. Any questions?
Sorry, well, Alex is here. Can I confirm, Alex, I sent you an email a few weeks, or a few days ago, a couple of weeks maybe, trying to earmark your calendar for September 5 on the exercise. I hope you recall that email. I didn't get an answer. Does that work for you? You recall the email? Let's start with that, Alex.
I'm looking for it now.
For the discussion on BES, our first meeting with sort of framing how we're gonna do this. Do you recall the email? Shall I send it again?
Yeah, if you could resend it, that would be great, because I'm not finding it here.
All right, I will do that. And I was hoping we could, with that frame, meet on September 5, but I didn't get an answer from you. So thank you, Alex. I'll send it again right now.
Okay, I'll mark my calendar in the meantime.
You know, pick a time that works for you and we'll work around you. And it'll probably be Ron Arnold, the village resident, who will work with us on this. We'll call on the expertise of Alexis Jake on the questions you just asked to sort of understand some of these issues. And
Yeah, two of our companies that are on NASDAQ. One is Nextera, which is in IPP, and American Battery Tech, which is probably one of the finest R&D labs with University of Nevada, Reno, which is one of the best in the United States in all things lithium technology. So I'm happy to call in some PhD friends, but I agree with you. Let's figure out what are the semantics of the provisos of this BES first, because it's a little confusing.
yeah, understood.
Okay. If there are no further questions, we can move on to item number 7 on the agenda, which is discussion on workforce housing. As you know, the village has been trying to implement a code, a specific code amendment to try to encourage developers to include workforce housing. And last night at the Board of Trustees, it was discussed at length. And two trustees, namely Rob Coburn and Ed Simeoni, had a lot of questions concerning the subject and reached out to the Planning Commission to see if we had done some work on it, if we had opinions. And so we are just starting the process of getting educated. Lots of work has been done on the subject, both by the village and by the town. There's a lot of documents posted on the different websites. And today we have invited Jay Deasing, who is a member of the advisory board of the Community Housing Fund, to speak a little bit about what he thinks and the state of the subject, both at town and village level. So, Jay, if you could, thank you.
Podium?
What's best, Sage?
Don't you want everybody at the table?
Sure.
Good to see you, Jay.
Nice
Hi,
to
Jay.
see you. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to come in and talk with you about this. I'm a village resident, so the village's view on affordable housing, workforce housing is critical. And I'm the Southampton Village member of the 16-person panel for community housing funds. And essentially, as you know, back in 2022, and I think you've pulled this off of the website, the town put together a housing plan, which we worked with them on essentially to look at each municipality within the town, each little area that they felt was a neighborhood, to see what the problems were, what the opportunities were, what the needs were. And we thought that would be the first step in helping us to be able to evaluate, because to some extent we're a very reactive board. Our mandate is essentially to wait for people to come to us and then evaluate or help them put together a transaction that they may have started. And it also includes some programs that we have sponsored and funded where you can get assistance up to $125,000 to rehabilitate an accessory dwelling unit. You can get first-time housing buyer credits in the form of a cash payment, and then also some additional rental incentives to help keep properties in the affordable category. So there's a number of different ways, and we have monthly meetings, and at every one of those meetings we have an Excel spreadsheet which sort of shows all of the different transactions that we're currently looking at. And many times a transaction will come in, for example, I think it was a 3.4 acre parcel up on Watermill, a 3.8 acre parcel in Watermill on the highway. And that was one of the first transactions that we looked at. And a lot of people thought that the price initially was high, but we also felt that getting something east of the canal is rare. And in spite of the fact that the location is somewhat heavily trafficked, if these are people who are working west or east, there's probably easier ways for those people to get around than driving all the way from Shirley or Ronkonkoma these days. So that now has taken almost 2.5 years to close.
How much did you spend on that?
And $4.3 million was the price.
And how much has the CHF collected so far since inception?
So we get roughly $1 million a month, maybe a little bit more the first 4 months, because you had to ramp up. And so the law came into effect, I believe, on May 1st. And so it was only applicable to contracts signed after May 1st. So of course, in May, I think we got one payment. There was one deal that was signed and closed before the end of the month. But each month thereafter, it has ramped up, and now we seem to be running at somewhere in the $1 million to $1.5 million per month.
So you have about 15 million in the kitty?
Right now, that's probably a good estimate.
So Jay, is the organization acting as a conduit with HUD, or you're doing this autonomous on yourself?
We're doing it, no connection
so
with HUD.
No connection to HUD.
So
That's
if there are
interesting.
other programs that are available,
That you can
you know,
commingle, yeah.
we can commingle.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why we want to stay in touch with the village, because I think as a village resident, I think we have an obligation to participate, to actually build affordable housing in our community. And I think there's some great opportunities. Unfortunately, because the land is so valuable, so I think treasured, I think that we will have to be more proactive, and unfortunately, our board cannot do that. But if you see something like John Duck's up by the railroad station, that to me would be a fabulous opportunity. And a developer could get a significant amount of support. Typically, we run anywhere, I think the average is probably about $250,000 per unit.
To build?
That we will support. So that's what we kind of feel like we can contribute to ensure that it stays affordable in perpetuity. But there's a couple of key things, I think. First off, we don't feel it's appropriate. I mean, right now, if anyone does multifamily housing, they have to, by New York state law, set aside 10%. So we don't want to give you $250,000 on those 10%. I mean, that's something that you have to do to get the additional density. So we don't feel that would really be appropriate.
Does the mission require like minimum 4 residential units? Do you have a mixed use requirement?
Do we?
Yeah, let's say, because we all know land is very finite here, as you correctly stated. It's very limited, and we don't have a lot of land mass. So to the extent what we can do in multiple residency, it's quite limited. So I would imagine you would look for opportunities, John Duck being one of them, where it serves of 4 to 6, 4 to 8 units, perhaps, that the FAR would allow. So do you require that, that you want minimum kind of units within our limitations?
We've actually also looked at some supportive housing units where it's a house.
Yeah,
And there are 4 residents who are living in that house. So it doesn't have to be
it can be an
minimum
SFR
number.
or two.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a
Yeah.
2-family home.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of options. We've got those properties on Hampton Road that I don't know whether you'd ever be able to combine some of those.
Yeah, I think Alex, I remember chiming in on one of those meetings, and you said at best we can add on Hampton Road about 20 residential units based on the parcels of land, if I understood it correctly.
In
I
a
mean,
very,
we're limited in the village. We all know this. You and I know we spoke about doing that at 43 Hill Street with HUD before that went in a different direction. So we are super limited. All we have is Hampton Road, Windmill Lane, and then what I'm looking at now at 131 Main Street, which has got a half an acre that you can do sustainable 2 to 3 units in the back, you know. But that's been a concern for all of our families, including our kids, because all of our kids can't afford to live here as well.
I mean, one of the things that we are seeing, though, is that in some instances, developers are using the affordable housing label to get greater density.
Right.
And my concern, and I think many people on the board feel the same way, not everybody, there's a wide
Right.
viewpoint, but many people feel that some of these developments that are giving us 3 or 4 affordable housing units, but adding 34 luxury units are net negative for the community, and that we should really, my feeling is we should not make any zoning allowances that do any additional luxury housing in Southampton. We don't need it in our village anymore. We can't handle it. I mean, you look at places like Switzerland where there's actually a 20% cap of vacation homes in their communities. They absolutely cap it.
Yeah.
And if it's not a primary residence after that, because what we built here is an imbalanced community. And it's unsustainable. And I think that if we don't start dialing that back, I have associates at work that live in Wading River. Most nights it takes them 2 hours. It's 16 miles.
We know it, yeah. We all know it.
And you can't, that's environmentally unsustainable. I think it's economically unsustainable. And so, if we're going to make an accommodation for a developer, I really don't think we can do it for added luxury housing in our village. We need every unit when it's going to have density, and maybe we'll have to revise the whole density. Maybe density is now going to be 20 units per acre if you get a sewer district and you can sort of try and build a little higher, maybe 3 to 4 story buildings. I mean, I think we've got to look at some novel ways to get more housing because, what are we waiting for? The traffic to get worse? It's not bad enough now.
Well, music to my ears, Jay. Thank you. We're an investor in Greystone Housing Impact Fund and Lument, so those are 2 good entities for you guys to get to know, and they do workforce housing and sustainable design as well. We're coincidentally doing one right now in another affluent area, Hancock Park, Los Angeles. Same thing, elder care, affordability. The homes are expensive, land's very scarce, and we're taking a prominent landmark. We're doing a seismic design because they have earthquakes there, and doing age and place adaptive reuse. It's a pervasive problem in all high-dense affluent areas. There's just not enough workability for younger generations, including us.
Alex, you have something to add?
Oh, no, I thought you had a question for me. But
Well-
other than, you're right. One of the limiting factors in the workforce housing proposal that's being discussed is the Suffolk County Health Department regulations.
That's the
because
other
they-
one, right?
So even if the village were to put no cap on the density at all,
That's right.
you would be very severely limited by the health department, especially because of much of Hampton Road and almost all of North Sea Road are in the most restrictive groundwater management zone 5,
Absolutely.
where the density is about 1 unit an acre. So even assuming that they can do some density bonuses with workforce housing credits, it's still very low. So we don't anticipate that there will be a lot of units built on any one project.
Even
yeah.
if you build
Yeah.
a sewer system for that particular development?
I was going to address that too, yeah.
Yeah, that's the requirements for septic for an individual property. If somebody were to come in and do something like and build their own sewer system, perhaps it would be a little bit different once the village has a sewer system online. Of course, some of those limitations may be removed as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the workarounds. If you can do the micro units on site, that's the only way. When we looked at 43, you may recall, we were looking to do 20 to 40,000 gallons of management capacity at 1,500 square feet. That's all the footprint it needed. And we were able to tie in Job's Lane and Windmill Lane into it for use until the village decided if we ever were going to go through this robust process that we all know has been going on for 30 years now. But I agree, without the Suffolk County approving it, we can't do a thing unless we do micro units, which technology is on our side. It's gotten better. You can put efficient units that can handle 10, 20,000 gallons now. The question is, how do we tie it into another asset for it to pay for itself as well?
Well, and you can also, with for example, the Watermill parcel, I know we're also investigating the possibility of CPF money being granted to build the septic system. So, you know, the developer gets a free parcel of land and he gets septic. Not a bad deal. So granted, that's not going to happen on every site, but I think, you know, there are some in the village where that might work. And I
Yeah.
think unfortunately, if we don't do something soon, they probably won't be here for much longer.
Right.
You mean the money will not be there?
No, the parcel.
parcels.
The parcel will be carved up and they will
Yeah,
be five,
something else.
they'll be 5 townhomes.
Yeah.
And
Have some villages been successful? I don't know, SAG or Bridgehampton, are they ahead of us in terms
Or
of workforce?
Westhampton.
Or Westhampton? In terms
yeah,
of,
I mean, East Hampton has done, I think, a better job of being able to build and get some interest in workforce housing.
do you know why? Do they have more land or more, or why are they successful?
I think it probably, their zoning is tighter. So I think here, what you have is a problem where someone can take a ranch house and he can turn it into a real McMansion. And the profit is so massive that it happens very quickly. I mean, virtually every house here is getting purchased by a developer. It gets flipped, and there goes another opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think in East Hampton, the zoning is tighter, much tighter. And so I think that's not happening as much. And so it makes it more likely that some of these houses will either have the opportunity, or some of these areas have the opportunity to get redeveloped as affordable housing, or an actual local is able to step in and buy it.
I'd be interested in working with you. I'm also on the board of a not-for-profit as well, where housing's one of it, and be interested in collaborating on 131 Main Street, which is what we're looking at. It's one of those rare examples like 43 Hill, where it's on high ground and you have a footprint where we can probably do some interesting things, you know, 2 or 3 units, town, and any little bit helps. It just does not exist. It's just horrible.
Yeah, and I think it helps in terms of, you know, the walkability of our village, the liveliness of the village,
yeah.
all of these things. If we could bring it, you know, bring it in a little bit, even on Hampton Road. I don't know what the possibility is for the lots to ever be combined. If that was something that could happen on some of those parcels, you could end up with a bigger parcel. You could get 6 to 8 units. And boy, that would be a home run.
The trick is always going to be working with micro units that can support the development. That's the good news, because the units have gotten so efficient to manage the wastewater, you can narrow it down to 1,500 square feet. And that will give us a clearer runway with Suffolk County approval. Otherwise, it's like Alex said, we can wish it all we want. If they see that we can't handle the waste and the water efficiently, we won't get the clearance. And that was the first thing I was addressing at 43, was that.
Christian, do you have any comments?
I have a couple of questions. First one for Jay and/or Alex. A few years ago, there were some changes in the village code with accessory apartment use for workforce housing, if you remember. And I was wondering, do we have any idea, you know, reasonable amount of work went into this, any idea of what the take-up rate was within the village? Was that at all remotely successful? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I can tell you that it currently exists in the code. It's a special exception use to the Board of Zoning Appeals. In the last 3 years that I've been here, no one has applied for that. I think there may have been a few that predate me, but I think it's a very small number. It might be like less than 5 in the whole village, I would
Thank
think.
you, Alex. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Jay, do you have any comment on that? Why previous administration worked on this, a lot of work on it? Seems like it was a waste of time. What was the casting error in your mind?
Well, it's First off, it has to be a half-acre parcel, am I correct?
I'd have to double check.
I'm pretty sure it has to be a half-acre
Okay.
parcel.
It's, I'm just going through the quick AI through the code. From what I saw, it was in the R20 area. Yeah, yeah, that's right.
So I think where you might find people who would possibly do that might be even the smaller parcels, because those are the people who are, trying to stay, could use the extra income. If you're in the R20, you probably have a $2.5 million check on your doorstep.
Actually, it's 7,500 as the minimum lot area.
And the town is a half acre. The town is 20,000. So
Okay, and the village's requirements may be different from the town.
yeah, I sort of always assumed that it was probably the smaller size houses, but I think it might just still be that pressure of the highest best use is a vacation home.
I was just asking this because I remember that work that was done, and then I heard it never got taken up. So I was curious, clearly there was a casting error. Is it worth for us to revisit this? Or it's just a bad idea to begin with and it's been proven useless?
It might not be a bad idea. I mean, I think it's probably not as well known as maybe some of the other opportunities out there. So maybe just letting people know that that's out there, especially in those smaller zones.
Because, I know some new trustees on the board who seem to be interested in the subject. We never even brought it up, so I don't think they even know about it themselves.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. The elected officials don't, can't know the whole code or the whole history of it, but that hasn't come up, and I know there were discussions last night in this very room. I listened, and I didn't hear a bit discussed about this. I'm not even sure the folks knew on that base.
Yeah, my impression is that you're right, that many of the homes that are second homes or vacation homes are not taking advantage of this, because it doesn't make sense to do so. A lot of, especially new homes, are built out to the maximum gross floor area, so they're not able to add an additional apartment. They would have to take away space from the internal part of the home, which not everyone is willing to do. We've also heard from some people that it's expensive to do, so the people that would take advantage of it can't afford it. The people that can afford it don't necessarily need it. We don't allow it in accessory buildings. It has to be part of the main dwellings, which I think is one of the limiting factors. It's not necessarily hard to get from a village standpoint if they meet the criteria, but I think it's just because of the nature of housing in the village and the logistical requirements that we haven't seen a lot of applications for it.
So Alex, given what you said, I'm just trying to figure out whether it wasn't worth doing at the time and nothing will change because of everything you just said, or does one need to sort of do a refresh and advertise it and inform people and see if there's anyone that would take some of it, or is it a combination of people just not really remembering or knowing about it and what you pointed out, Alex? How should we think about this? Do you have any guidance or thoughts, Alex?
Yeah, it's a fair question. My thought is that, it's a good idea. It helps, to promote what people sometimes call like mother-daughter units. A lot of municipalities offer it. It makes sense. I suspect the demand for that type of unit just may be relatively low. We haven't had a lot of people asking for things like this, just because of the housing patterns in the village. It couldn't hurt to help spread the word, but I don't think it's necessarily an awareness issue. I think there's probably just other factors at play.
In the town, they allow it in the garage. Is there a reason that we chose not to do that?
I think it was a policy choice by the mayor and the trustees. I think there was a concern that accessory buildings would essentially become secondary dwellings. And that there was concerns about, pool houses being turned into dwellings, being made into like vacation rentals and things like that. They thought that would make it harder to monitor. But you're right, there are a lot of municipalities that do allow it in secondary structures, like granny flats or something like that. But the choice was made to require it in the primary dwelling.
Yeah, I
Jay,
mean,
do you think that's something we should look at again?
I'll find out. Our next meeting is next Wednesday, and I'll see how the town has been doing on theirs, because we actually give up to $125,000 to help you pay for building an accessory unit. And it can be in a detached garage, it can be, I think it can be part of the residence, but I always assumed that it was in a detached garage, because that's so much of the configuration out here is the house in the front and the garage all the way in the back. And I think we actually allocated for 10 of those units, and I do not know how many. We put aside 1.25 million. So I don't know how many we're taking advantage of. But I'll find out for you, get back to you.
My other question, my second question was about the work that's been done by the consultants on behalf of the board at their request on the topic of BFJ. What I'm slightly concerned about is for this commission to look at the topic, et cetera, and be either duplicative or otherwise to what is already experts at BFJ that are working on this. Alex, any thought as to how one should think about it? Because I'm not sure the commission should be competing with the consultant.
Well, I think the BFJ study commissioned by the village was expressly for workforce housing in the office district
Yeah,
in
that's what I remember too.
At the time, it was decided not to focus on the single-family districts because it was thought that nothing much would change beyond the accessory apartments that are already permitted as they are. And in the village business district, we also allow accessory apartments above stores, but we know that there's not many of them just because of septic and sewer limitations. So their study was specifically focused on those two corridors for those reasons.
Okay, so to my point about not competing with the consultants already done the work though, it sounds like I'm hearing there is possibility that we should spend a little bit of time coordinating with the CHS board, with our village representative Jay, and thinking of and reviewing some of these things that have been done in the past, not really taken up, and maybe dig up again, because even if we get 10, 12 out of it through a new effort, it's 10, 12 more than we had yesterday. Is that the right way to think about it, gentlemen, around the table? Or do you have
Yeah, I
any
like the
other-
idea of getting educated as a commission. There is a lot of documents posted, and just putting them together, absorbing them, and reading all the materials from the different efforts and then comparing with maybe other villages and other towns. There's a lot of work to put it all together, and a lot of people are extremely knowledgeable and have most of the answers already. But this effort stems from the fact that new trustee Rob Coburn contacted me and seemed to be determined to maybe do something about it. And I think Ed Simeone is also interested. I think they come from a place whereas they feel that you should force the developer to offer more workforce housing, or to force them to, I don't know, maybe I'm putting words in their mouth, but that the percentage should be higher, and maybe the money that we, or the tax abatements or whatever advantages we offer should result into more workforce housing for any new development. I think that's where they come from. And so
Should there be any new development in the village to begin with, to Jay's earlier point, period?
Yeah.
So it may be a bit circular as an argument here.
Yeah, it is. And obviously, the higher the percentage is,
Happy to do the work, but to what end?
Yeah.
Is the question. I mean, you gotta have goals and objectives before you start doing all this research. Why are we doing it?
well,
That's
to
really what I'm trying to solve.
to this point, Rob Coburn was, I invited him to come here today also, but he couldn't make it, he has a conflict. So we'll have him at the next Planning Commission and hear his thoughts, and maybe then we can decide if it's a subject that the commission should take on or not.
Well, certainly on the accessory housing that we had done, the village had done, it would be worth revisiting this. And Jay, we really should look forward to hearing back from your meeting next Wednesday on that topic, because we should revisit this.
Okay.
As I said, if we can get a dozen of them to come out of nowhere, because we do a better job in advertising it, promoting it, and with the CHF support, that could be pretty cool. I mean, if you get a dozen of them,
Yeah.
better than nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And
With
all
the-
that work that
With the
we do.
caveat that Jay mentioned before, which is, if you make it too attractive to developers and you suddenly have 30 more luxury housing in order to favor, 5 or 10 workforce housing, is that a good strategy for the village or not? And, it's a,
I would agree with Jay's view.
yeah, Jay's right, of course.
I think,
I think most resident whose primary concern today has been traffic, no longer security or public safety or their taxes. That's all they care about is traffic. I think it goes in time.
yeah, I mean, one of the things that we, I think, purposely steered clear of is any goals in the plan. I mean, there's not a number for the town. There's not a number for any of the hamlets within the town. Because I think the feeling was we were going to be a reactive board. We were going to have this be organic from the community and from the developers. But I think the problem is severe enough that is not going to solve it. And so over time, I think we will have to be much more proactive. And I think in our village to think that over the next 5 to 10 years that we could do 50 units is not unreasonable at all. I mean, it's numbers-wise, it's a very small investment. I mean, it's not even the cost of one house on the ocean. And I think to say that we don't have that commitment to affordable housing would be disappointing. That our village would have that mentality. So hopefully we can find a way to work together, step up, as opposed to, what happened on Watermill Crossing. I understand, we got 4 affordable housing units, although they have not even been released yet to the community. We got 34, 2 to 4 million condominiums right on the highway. So I doubt that those 4 units will even keep pace with the added needs for that facility. Yeah. So I think we really have to look at those numbers and think differently. Of course, they didn't take any money from the Community Housing Fund either. So that was simply the 10% essentially that they're required by New York State law to put aside.
Okay, well, that was a healthy discussion.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Jay, for coming, for taking the time. We appreciate it. We'll keep you posted.
Good,
And
good. Yeah, and I'm sure that Kara would love to come in and speak with you, the head of the Community Housing Fund. Also Curtis Highsmith and Bonnie Cannon, they're working at the Southampton Town Housing Authority. They have the ability. We're going to be doing, I think probably most of you know, the Easterner Motel down towards Hampton Bays.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's going to become 10 affordable housing units. I think it's going to be more senior units in there, but I think that could be, I think that'll be a nice addition. But I'd love some things actually in the village.
In the village,
I think we
proper.
really have to kind of lead the way for the town, and I think we can do that if we try.
Okay,
Okay, thank
Great.
you.
thank you very much. We'll adjourn this meeting. The next one is on Friday, September the 12th at 3 p.m. Thank you, Christian. Thank you, Alex, for coming. Jolie, thank you, Sage, and good night.
Good seeing you, Jay.